Hey guys, so today I'm going to be making a tier list of all of the Inscryption cards from Act 1. This should be pretty interesting. You'll get to see all my opinions on which cards I think are good and which ones I think are bad. So let's get this show on the road. We'll start with the Adder. Now, I personally do not like the Adder very much. It's for 2 blood, it only does 1 damage. Now, the insta-kill is kind of nice, but overall, I would give the Adder about a C tier. It's not the best card, it's not the worst. Its ability can be good if you put it on something else, but overall, it's not great. Next, we have the Alpha. The Alpha, in and of itself, I don't think is a very good card, although it has very good support potential. For 5 bones, it only having 1 attack and 2 health is not great, but the fact that it can boost any card next to it by adding 1 damage is very good. So for the Alpha, I think based off of its ability alone, I'm giving it a B. I think that's pretty solid for the Alpha. Next, we have the Amalgam. Now, the Amalgam is quite good. For only 2 blood, it counts as every single card, which means when you're doing the boons, it can be quite a good card to have. And it also counts as a rare card. And since it has 3 attack and 3 health, it does pretty good damage. And overall, I think this is a very solid card. I'm going to also put it in B tier. The Amoeba, I'm not a huge fan of. 2 bones is pretty cheap, but 1 attack, 2 health is not great. And the random sigil can really ruin your deck if you don't get a good sigil. So overall, I think the Amoeba is probably about a D tier. I don't like the Amoeba very much. Now, the Worker Ant and the Ant Queen both fall kind of into the same boat. You have to have both for either of them to be very effective. And I don't think they're the best cards ever. I think the Worker Ant and the Ant Queen are both C's, although I think the Ant Queen is a high C. I think it's an okay card. The fact that you can draw ants is quite nice, but its high cost, 2 blood, is not great. And the fact that it's only compatible with the Worker Ants makes it kind of hard to use. Next, we have the Bat. I do not like the Bat. The Bat is not a good card. 4 bones for 2 attack and only 1 health is terrible. That is an awful trade-off. It's not a great unit. It may be good for 1 hit, but it almost immediately dies to literally every single card in the game. And 4 bones is a very steep price for that. Next, we have the Beaver. The Beaver is an okay card. It spawns 2 of the dams next to it, which is kind of nice if you're on the defensive. And its medium health can help with defense as well. The 2 blood cost makes it kind of hard to use effectively, but I think overall the Beaver is a decent choice for a card. I'd say a solid C tier. Now, the Beehive and the Bee are interesting. The Beehive in and of itself, I think, is automatically F tier. Not a great card. It does only cost 1 blood, but it does no attack, has 2 health. The Bee, however, is a very, very useful card. 1 attack and 1 health, but it's completely free. That's the best part. Not great unit overall, but that's a free hit for no cost to you. So as long as you have a space open, the Bee can be played no matter what. So it's a very good card. Next is the Black Goat. Black Goat, I think, is immediate S tier. Black Goat is one of the best cards in the entire game. For only 1 blood cost, it allows you to bring out a much better card by just sacrificing it without having to get rid of your entire board to bring something else on. So I think the Black Goat definitely deserves S tier. Bloodhound is okay. I'm not a huge fan. I know a lot of people love Bloodhound because of the fact that it will jump in front of any newly placed card to block it, which means if they play a really strong card, you can place Bloodhound anywhere, get 2 hits in, and then it'll jump to them and block their attack. So it's a pretty decent card. I'm going to give it a B tier. I think high B is pretty good. I think it's worse than the Amalgam, but I think Bloodhound is quite good. Bullfrog is a card I have love-hate relationship. Sometimes it saves your life and it's the best card ever. Other times you draw it and you want to cry. I think it's an okay card. 1 damage and 2 health, and the fact that it can block flying is very nice. For only a 1 cost blood, very good card. I think it's a solid C tier. The Caged Wolf is an interesting card. 2 blood cost, no attack, but 6 health. And the fact that when you break the cage, it releases a wolf. It is actually a very good card. And it also unlocks some secrets in the game that I will not go into detail on. I think the Cage Wolf is a good B tier card. Good B tier. Now, my favorite card in the entire game, Cat, absolutely deserves S plus tier. Cat is the best card in the entire game, without a doubt. The fact that it can be sacrificed infinite times gives it huge playability in the game. And since you can put this on any other card, you can make a super card that literally never dies, which is incredible. And I think the Undead Cat falls in kind of the same category. I don't think it's S plus, but I think S tier is quite appropriate for it. It has a cost of 1 blood, which is quite cheap for 3 attack and 6 health. That is a very, very, very good card. I just think it doesn't have the same usability as the cat, as the normal cat with its unkillability. Now, Child 13. There are 2 forms. This form is pretty much useless, but the Child 13, once you have sacrificed it once, I think is easily S plus here. The triple prong attack, each doing 2 damage. That is a huge damage potential. It only having 1 health is quite dangerous, but it's still a very good card. Extremely versatile and super useful. Cockroach is a card. In and of itself, it isn't great. 4 bones for 1 attack and 1 defense isn't great, but its ability makes it infinitely better. The unkillability of the cockroach is extremely helpful, especially if you put that on something like a bee or another free card that you may have in your deck. By putting this on that, it makes that card playable forever, and you never have to draw another card. That one is just a free block no matter what, plus damage if the card does damage. So Cockroach's ability is very useful. Corpse Maggots, I don't like. Its ability isn't great. It's extremely expensive, hard to play, no health, no damage. I don't like the Corpse Maggots very much. It can be useful in very specific situations, but overall, not great. Coyote, I think, is a decent card. High damage, low health, kind of a glass cannon. If you do upgrade the Coyote, you can get it to be pretty decent for only 4 bones. So I think it's better than the Adder, but I think the Coyote overall is about a C tier card. The Douse is another rare card. It's basically the Beaver, but a little more balanced. And also, if you hit the bells that it spawns on its side, it becomes incensed and will do more damage. So that can be pretty good, but again, specific situations mean it can only be used in certain situations. So it's not the greatest thing. Next, we have the Elk Fawn. The Elk Fawn and the Elk kind of fall in the same category. The Elk Fawn, in and of itself, I'd give it about a low C. It's better than the Worker Ant. 1 blood for 1 attack and 1 health. But it moves, and also when it grows up, it turns into an elk. Now, the elk from the Elk Fawn is very good, and on its own, it's a decent card. 2 attack and 4 health, which is pretty good. So I think the elk is a solid card. The Field Mice. This is an interesting card. It isn't the best card in the game. It's not incredibly powerful. Only 2 attack and 2 health for 2 blood, which is pretty even. Although its ability makes it so when you play Field Mice, you get a Field Mice back into your hand, which can be decently useful if you're running out of cards. So I think the Field Mice is a very useful card depending on what your situation is. Now Gek, I think Gek deserves an S tier. Gek is a very good card. It counts as a rare card, which is very good for boons and stuff. And also if you put abilities like 3 Blood Sacrifice or Unkillable on it, Gek becomes an extremely useful card that can be used for free. And by upgrading it at the flyers and boosting its damage and health, you get an extremely powerful free card that you need nothing to play. So it is an extremely versatile, very good card. Greater Smoke. This is one that you get later in the game. I think it's pretty alright. It's a good card. It's got 1 damage and 3 health, but it gives you 4 bones when it dies, and it's free to play as well. So it's pretty decent. I would give it low B, maybe high or low A. I think I'll give it low A, mainly because of the fact that it's free and it gives you a ton of bones. It's a very good way to get bones. You can play other cards like the Coyote. Now, the Great White and the Grizzly are both really high cost cards that are kind of difficult to use. Unless you have the Black Goat, again, very good card, which allows you to play these guys instantly, they're not super useful. If you were to take just their stats, they'd be S tier cards, but their cost makes them a lot harder to use. The Great White, I think, is slightly worse. I think they both deserve A tier, but I think the Great White is slightly worse than the Grizzly. Even though it can dive, it only has 2 health. So if it gets hit, most things can kill it. There aren't many things that won't kill it. The Grizzly has 6 health, so it's a lot harder to kill the Grizzly. And since it does 4 damage, it'll kill almost anything in its way. Kingfisher, I hate. Not because the card is bad, but I just have a horrible relationship with this stupid card. Because it's flying, which means you can't, it attacks over your cards, and it dives, which means if you have a card on the spot that it's on, it can't be attacked. And if you don't attack it the first turn that it's out, it can't die. It's almost impossible to kill it. So it becomes a very annoying card. Long Elk is a card that's not great. For a rare card, it's pretty bad. 1 damage and 2 health. It does move, and it does have the touch of death, so anything it hits will die. But it costs 4 bones, which is quite expensive. And I think the Long Elk isn't the best thing ever. The Magpie is a super good card. In and of itself, you'd think, oh, it's only 1 damage, 1 health, it's 2 blood, that's really expensive. Except the Magpie has a secret, which is this little sigil right here. Now that sigil allows you to look into your deck and grab any card that you want. Any card. So if you play the Magpie, you can draw any card you have in your deck, which means if you have a custom card or you have a really strong card, you can find it and play it immediately just by playing the Magpie, which is a super good combo. Now the Mantis God and the Mantis are both very good cards. One has a triple pronged attack, the Mantis God. Mantis God is S tier, for sure. Mantis God is very good, and I will give the Mantis high B tier. Mantis isn't as good because it can't attack directly in front of it, which means once you place it down, anything that attacks it or comes near it will kill it because it can't defend itself. But overall, it's still a very good card. Its double pronged attack can be good to put on cards that have high damage, like the Amalgam. So overall, Mantis God S, Mantis B. Mole Man is another rare card. I think it's pretty decent. It's not the best card in the game, but for 1 blood, being able to block pretty much anything, it's quite useful. I think it's better than the Greater Smoke. It's a very, very good defensive card. It pops up to block. It can block air. This is the ultimate defensive card. It's very good on defense. And the Mole is just a worse version of it. I'd give the Mole about a C. Can't block flying and has less health for the same blood cost. Really not the greatest card ever. Moose Buck is next. I don't like the Moose Buck. It's way too expensive. 3 damage, 7 health is a lot. It's a very high health card, and it pushes cards. So if you have a card next to it, it'll push them to the side. But I don't think it's quite worth the blood cost. I think the Moose Buck is probably a low B tier. I think that's about right for its stats for blood cost. Now, the next 3 are all together. You got the Strange Larva, the Strange Pupa, and Mothman. Strange Larva is F, and Strange Pupa is also F. 0 damage, 3 health for 1 blood, and not a good card. It does nothing. But once it hits Mothman, oh boy, he becomes really, really good. Mothman is an extremely powerful card if it survives. If it survives, it does 7 attack and it flies. So it's going to hit over any enemy unless it's a blocking enemy. But even if you have like a Mole Man, he kills it instantly. So Mothman is a very good card if he survives. The Possum is a pretty basic card. I say low C. It's 2 bones for a 1/1. You know what you're getting. It's not great. It's not the worst. It's okay. This card right here is the holy grail of this game. The Ouroboros is the greatest card to ever grace this game. This unkillable is very special because when the Ouroboros is killed or sacrificed, it returns to your hand and gains 1 attack and 1 health. So if you have a 1/1 Ouroboros and you sacrifice it to play something else, it'll return to your hand with 2 attack and 2 health for the same blood cost. And it will do this forever. And it will keep doing this over and over and over and over again until you have a card that has 20 attack and 20 health and can kill literally anything. And to top that off, you can take something like the Mantis God and put its 3-pronged attack on it so it's doing 20 here, 20 here, 20 here. The Ouroboros is the greatest card in the entire game, hands down. Next up we have the Pack Rat. Now the Pack Rat is an okay card. It's 2 blood for 2 attack and 2 damage, or 2 attack and 2 health, which is pretty good in and of itself. And the fact that it gives you an item is also very good. So normally I would give this probably a high B, but the item pushes it a little higher, and I would say it's about a middle of the row A. Next we have the Rabbit, Wolf, and Golden Pelt. Rabbit Pelt is F tier. 1 health, gives you no good cards, terrible. Wolf Pelt, slightly better. I would give it like top of F. It's better than some of these cards because it's defensive, but the cards it can trade for aren't amazing. The Golden Pelt, I think, is a little more useful. For being able to get rares, it can be quite versatile, although, again, in your hand, it's not very useful. It just doesn't do a whole lot. The Porcupine, this is just F. Not a good card. 1 blood, 1 attack. The Thorns isn't a great ability, and it's only got 2 health, so it really doesn't do a whole lot. Pronghorn is a decent card. 1 damage, but it's pronged, so it does 2 damage technically, with 3 health, and it moves. I would give this probably a D tier. I think a D tier is pretty good, like high D. I think maybe it's a little bit better. Rabbit, this is another card similar to the bee. I think it's slightly worse because it doesn't have the attack that the bee has, but still, it's a free card that you just get, and if you get unkillability on it, it's just an infinite shield, which is really good. Rat King, I don't like. It's basically Greater Smoke, but worse. It does more damage, has less health, and costs 2 blood for 4 bones, which really, in the long run, is not a great trade-off. So I think this is probably better than the Adder, but not by much. The Rattler is a decent card. It's 6 bones, which means it's quite expensive. But for 3 attack, it depends on what your loadout is. The Rattler can be good, but I still think it's just an okay card. I think it's better than the Rat King by a little bit, but not by much. The Raven Egg, again, this is not a great card. D tier, not amazing. The Raven, however, is pretty good. The Raven is probably a low B tier. For 2 blood, it has 2 attack, flies, and it's 3 health, so it's kind of hard to kill and can be pretty annoying if you get a couple of them on the board. Especially if you play a Raven Egg and a Raven, then they have to deal with one or the other, and no matter what, it's going to be annoying. Now, the Ringworm is, most people take it for granted. They think it's really bad. But actually, the Ringworm is a very good card. First off, it seems really unopposing. No attack, 1 health, for a blood, that's really bad. However, it has an ability. First off, it will make you automatically pass the having a ring boon. So if you have a Ringworm, it will let you pass that boon immediately, and you just win. However, it also has another thing, which is when you go to the campfires and you enhance your unit, the Ringworm can actually kill the survivors if they eat it. If they eat the Ringworm, the survivors will die, and you'll be able to put any card on the fire and boost it as much as you want, because the survivors are no longer there. So that makes the Ringworm extremely good if you can get it and also get it eaten. But that usually only happens later in the game. The River Otter, I think, is a low C. Again, pretty much on the same par as the Opossum. It's 1 blood for 1 attack and 1 health, which is amazing, but it can dive, which makes it a little bit better. River Snapper is one of those starting cards. I think it's the worst starting card. It's not very good. It's got a lot of health, but no attack, and it costs 2 blood, which isn't good. Skink, another one of those. I don't like the Skink very much. I'm not a huge fan. I think it falls right around here. For 1 blood, 1 attack, 2 health isn't terrible, but just it's not a very good card, and its ability isn't great. It just spawns out a 0/1 tail where it was and runs away, but it can only do that once, which is quite annoying. And then, of course, if it can't move, it can't do that, so it just dies. Skunk, this is F tier. Skunk is absolutely an F tier. I'd put it probably right about here. No attack, which is really bad, but it can stink the enemy, which makes him do 1 less damage, so that can be okay, but overall, it's not amazing. The Smoke, it's like the Greater Smoke, just worse. It doesn't hit back, and it only has 1 health, but, usually you're only using the Smoke for a sacrifice anyway, so to be honest, it's not the worst thing in the world. The Sparrow is the next thing. The Sparrow, I think, is an okay card. It's not amazing. 1 blood, it does 1 attack and has 2 health and can fly, so it's like a Raven, but a little bit worse. So, I put it like middle of the road, C. It's right about there. It's not the best. Okay, now these are all special ones. So, this tentacle monster, its power comes from how many times the bell has been rung since it has been played. So, if you played this thing and then you rung the bell 3 times, it now has 4 attack because it starts with 1. So, if it can survive a long time, so if you boost its health especially, this can easily be an A tier card. Easily an A tier. Very good card. This card gets its strength by how many cards you have in your hand. Now, if you have one of those decks where you're drawing cards constantly and you are constantly getting lots of cards, this can be another really good, but a lot of people don't have that, so I would give it like a high C tier. 1 health just isn't 1. Now this can be very, very, very good. This card mimics the damage that the opposing card has. So if this thing is across from, let's say it's across from the Child 13, it will do 2 damage because it will mimic that one's damage, which is pretty good. So I would give it a an A tier. I think it's a little bit better than this one, but not as good as some of these other sacrificial ones. Now we get to the 3 lore: the stink bug, the stoat, and the stunted wolf. I think the stink bug is the worst out of all 3. I think the stink bug is D tier. It's basically a skunk, but not much better. So I'd say it gets about a D. Stunted wolf is a very good card, actually. Stunted wolf is like a wolf. It does 1 less damage, but it costs 1 less blood, which is huge. So the Stunted Wolf, actually, I think is a very good card. I think it's like top of A. I think it's an extremely powerful, good card that can be upgraded quite well. The Stoat, he would be, like, I would say a C, but he's so annoying. You get bottom of C, just because you're annoying. Turkey Vulture's next. 8 bones. That is a lot of bones. It's one of the most expensive bone things in the game. For 3 attack and 3 health. And yeah, it flies, but you can get a raven for 2 blood. And it's basically the same thing, just way less expensive. So I would say Turkey Vulture is probably like low C tier. I think it would fit right around there. A little better than the opossum, because it can fly, but not much. Now the Urayuli. This card is fantastic. I think it's a high A card. It's a little expensive for my taste. 4 blood is a lot. That is a full board or a black goat plus something else. So it can be very hard to get the Urayuli out. But once you get it out, it's practically unstoppable. I mean, 7 damage and 7 health. That's a lot. Next we have the Warren. Warren is a crap card. It is awful. The Warren is probably one of the worst cards in the game. All it does is spawn a bunny when you play it, and that's it. It does nothing else. Doesn't attack. You can't do anything else with it. It just spawns a singular bunny out of its hand. That's it. So, really bad card. I'm gonna put it below the porcupine because it's pretty much useless. Wolf Cub. Wolf Cub is a pretty good card. I would give it a solid like B. I think it's a little better than the Caged Wolf because it becomes a wolf much faster than the Caged Wolf and costs less. Plus, it can fight back when it's placed, but you have to be careful. And finally, the Wolf. The Wolf, I would say, is probably an A tier. I think it's slightly worse than the Stunted Wolf, mainly because it costs an extra blood for just 1 extra damage, which isn't a lot, especially since you can just upgrade the Stunted Wolf and make it better. But overall, I think the Wolf is a pretty good card. I would put it above the Cockroach, but below the Urayuli just because of how beefy this guy is. But yeah, that's my tier list. I think this is a pretty accurate representation of how I feel about all the cards in the game. I hope you guys liked my tier list, and I hope you guys agree at least somewhat with some of my choices. I will see you guys in the next video. So, see you later.